Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds Seb, Marie, Maxim, and Felix in my basement. We've got some of the brand new commanders from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and everyone's excited to show them off. Felix has decided to build and play Hakbal of the Surging Soul, keeping 2 forests, an island, hinterland harbor, rapid hybridization, and negate. Maxim is playing Clavileño, First of the Blessed, keeping 2 plains, arcane signet, Corial Vampire, Sanctum Seeker, Kindred Boon, and Village Rites. Marie is playing Titania, Nature's Force, keeping Forest, Secure Tribe-Elder, Cultivate, Regrowth, Blighted Woodland, and Jaheira's Respite. Last but not least, Seb is rocking their Urza Prince of Krug deck, keeping a plains, a command tower, 2 islands, Pristine Talisman, Lightning Greaves, and Mirrodin Besieged. Seb wins the die roll and starts us off. Seb draws and plays a command tower. Max plays a plains. Marie has a forest for turn. Felix plays a tapped Path of Ancestry. Seb draws, playing an island, and casting Lightning Greaves. Max just plays a plains and pays 2 for an arcane signet. Marie plays her Blighted Woodland and then pays 2 mana for Secure Tribe-Elder. Felix has an island and just passes. For turn 3, Seb plays a plains and then pays 3 mana for Pristine Talisman. Max pays 2 in his main phase for a Blood Artist, and Marie responds by sacrificing the Elder to go and find a forest. The artist then resolves, but with nothing else, he has to pass. Marie keeps ramping, casting Cultivate in her main phase. She goes to find a tapped forest for the field, and puts a forest to hand, which she then plays for her land for turn. Speaking of forests, Felix plays a forest for his turn, and then passes. During his end step, Seb taps their talisman and gains 1 life. Seb plays an Ancient Den for turn, and then casts Fairy Mechanist, gaining 1 from tapping the talisman. They then look at their top cards, but unfortunately whiff on the Enter the Battlefield trigger. Seb then gears up the Mechanist with the Greaves, and moving to combat, hits Max for 2 and passes. Max draws and casts Village Rites, sacrificing his Blood Artist to draw some cards. He gets the On Death Blood Artist trigger and drains Seb for 1. With that trigger on the stack, Marie uses this as a chance to cast a Worldly Tutor, and goes to find a creature card to put on top. Max then plays a Swamp, and Max then casts his commander, Clavileño, First of the Blessed. He passes once it resolves. Marie reveals Nissa, Resurgent Animist, to the Worldly Tutor and puts it on top. She then draws it for turn, and then casts her. Marie then plays a tapped Mosswort Bridge and hides away a card, plus makes 1 green mana from Nissa seeing the land enter. She then taps her 2 remaining lands to help cast a Scoot Swarm, and passes after that. Felix plays a forest, and then taps out in his main phase for Hakbal. Moving to combat, he gets to Explore, which has him revealing Explore, and he puts it to his graveyard, and Hakbal gets a +1/+1 counter. He then passes after that. Seb untaps and draws. They play an island for turn, and then cast Mirrodin Besieged, gaining 1 from using the talisman, and then picking Mirrodin as it enters. Moving to combat, they then go and hit Marie with the Mechanist for 2, and passes. Max's turn has him tapping 4 mana to cast a Sanctum Seeker, and he then moves to combat. He swings his commander Clavileño at Felix, and gets the on-attack trigger from both it and the Seeker. The Seeker drains Max's opponents for 1, and his commander gives himself the Demon ability, which will make him a 4/3 demon and draw him a card if it ever dies. I then forget to mark the damage down because I'm really good at my job, and Max then passes turn. Marie draws and pays 2 mana for Regrowth, returning Cultivate to hand. She then recasts it and finds a tap basic to the field and puts a basic to her hand. She gets a Scoot Swarm token from the basic entering, and then makes 2 more when she plays the Forest from her hand, plus she gets a Nissa trigger. She makes a mana, and then a second mana, plus she gets to reveal until she hits an Elf or Elemental token after the second mana ability resolves. We see her revealing until she hits a Vigor, which she puts to hand. She then moves to combat, hitting Seb with Nissa and passing. Felix plays an island for turn, and casts a Cold-Eyed Selkie, using the Path of Ancestry to help cast it. He gets to scry 1, and he keeps it on top. Moving to combat, Hakbal triggers, and he reveals a non-land card off the top. He keeps it on top for both triggers, adding a +1/+1 counter onto the Selkie and his commander. Moving to combat, he swings everything at Marie. The on-attack trigger lets Felix put out a Hinterland Harbor from his commander, and Marie chumps with a Scoot Swarm token. Seb plays a Plains for turn, and gains 1 from tapping the Talisman to help cast a Scuttling Doom Engine. They make a Mirror token from Mirrodin Besieged, and then gear up the engine with the Lightning Greaves. Seb then swings the engine at Marie, who can't block, and she takes it, and Seb passes. Max's main phase has him casting Commander's Insignia, and he then heads to combat. He swings the Seeker and his commander at Marie. This has Max draining the table for 2 with the Seeker trigger, and he then has Clavileño's ability go on the Seeker, so that he'll draw a card and make a demon token when it dies as well. Marie then takes the hit, and with nothing else, Max passes. Marie counts up her lands, and then plays a Forest, making 3 Scoot Swarm tokens and a mana from Nissa. She then pays 5 plus a floating for Titania's command, and picks the mode to find 2 lands, and put 2 +1/+1 counters onto her creatures. Felix says nope to this, and uses Negate to counter it. Marie then passes turn, and during her end step, Felix takes out Nissa with Rapid Hybridization. Felix draws, and in his main phase plays Topography Tracker, making a map token. He moves to combat, and gets to double Hakbal's Explore triggers because of the tracker. He goes through each one, revealing and milling or putting to hand, and upticking the counters on the creatures appropriately. This adds up to a lot of power, and the Cold-Eyed Selkie goes at Seb, while Hakbal heads at Marie once more. Hakbal's on-attack trigger resolves with Felix drawing a card, and Marie then blocks him with a Scoot Swarm. Seb unfortunately cannot block because the Selkie has Island Walk, and takes 3. This lets Felix draw 3 cards, and he then passes, discarding down to 7 as Seb takes their turn. Seb taps 5 mana for a Great Desert Prospector, and as it comes in, makes 3 tapped Power Stones. They pass after that. Max plays a Swamp for turn, and pays double black for a Cordial Vampire, having finally hit another source of black mana. He then casts a Blade of Bloodchief, and gears it up onto his commander. Moving to combat, the Seeker heads at Felix. This has Max draining his opponents for 1, and Felix then takes the hit, and Max passes. Marie draws and casts Titania Nature's Force in her main phase. She then pays the green to activate her Mosswar Bridge, and this allows her to cast the green sleeves for free that's been hidden underneath it. She then plays a Forest for her land for turn, making a ton of Scoot Swarm tokens, not to mention Badger token from green sleeves, to which surprisingly, she has the appropriate token for. She then passes, and during her end step, Felix uses Quandrix's command to add more counters to his commander, and bounces green sleeves back to Marie's hand. Felix plays a Forest, and then taps 4 mana for Herald of Secret Streams. This card is absolutely incredible if you have +1/+1 counters in your deck, and he's not done though, casting a Thieving Skydiver, and kicks it so he can steal the Blade of Bloodchief from Max. Moving to combat, he gets his Hakbal triggers doubled because of the Topography tracker, and he then reveals a Mirror Regery. He leaves it on top for all of his explorers, effectively giving his entire board 2 +1/+1 counters. Felix then goes all out at Marie, and has the second Hakbal trigger put out an island from his hand. Marie can't block, and gets taken out. This also has Felix drawing 5 cards from the Selkie dealing damage, and he passes as he discards down to 7. Sab casts a Golden Mirror, making a Mirror token from Mirrodin Besieged, and then moves to put to stack a Meteor Golem. Responding to this, Felix casts an Abjure and sacrifices the Skydiver to counter the spell. Having used up most of their mana, Seb then passes turn. Max draws and casts an Orzhov Signet. He then pays enough to cast Twilight Prophet and notes that he's ascended. Going to combat, he swings the team of vampires that can attack at Felix, and drains his opponents for 3 from the Seeker trigger. He also has the Clavileño trigger go onto the Cordial Vampire, and has it also gain the ability of making a 4/3 demon token and drawing Max a card if it ever dies. This is good timing because Felix blocks the Cordial Vampire, and it does die, which makes Max a 4/3 demon token and draws him a card. Max then plays a Swamp for turn, and passes after that. Felix plays an island and looks at his graveyard. At this point, I finally remember to include Max's attack from way back in the game, and as I'm doing so, Felix encores Mist Dancer from his graveyard, and makes a copy of it that has to swing at Seb. Felix then casts a Simic Ascendancy, and he moves to combat. He gets his first Hakbal trigger, and keeps the non-land card on top, so he'll just be adding 2 +1/+1 counters to his entire team, plus adds that many counters to his Ascendancy. He then counts up his power and has just enough to take out Max, but is forced to swing everything at him except for the 1 token that has to go at Seb. On attack, Hakbal lets Felix put out a command tower, and Max then takes the hit and dies. Felix gets to draw a fresh hand with the 7 cards from the Selkie, and then passes to Seb, discarding down to 7. Seb draws and looks at the life totals. They cast a Basalt Monolith, making a mirror token, and then tap the Pristine Talisman, gaining 1 life, and using the mana to help cast their commander, Urza, Prince of Krug. Seb then uses Urza's ability to make a copy of the Scuttling Doom Engine that's also a 1/1 soldier token. And they then move the Greaves onto Urza. With their artifact creatures now having +2/+2, Seb quickly does some math and realizes they can swing enough at Felix to take him out, winning through combat damage and winning the game. Game review time. This game was 53 minutes and 28 seconds. And I think in hindsight, Maxim and Felix were actually playing the precon decks. I'm kind of vaguely remembering this now, and it checks out considering how many of the cards they played are in the precons. That being said, both of them seem very aggro-centric, although I will say Hakbal was a lot better at building up the board that he had, whereas for the vampire deck, I definitely got the impression that he wanted to play a lot of small creatures, put the ability on them, and then have them all die, which seemed like a lot more setup than just putting counters as he attacks, which is exactly what the Simic Merfolk deck wanted to do. Seb had said that their Urza deck was recently made, and I don't know how it plays out, because they didn't seem to draw very much or do very much. I think they got very lucky, and the fact that Felix forgot that basically their commander gave everything on their field +2/+2, that really worked in their favor. As a result, I think Marie got targeted pretty hard, because her deck was the only deck at the table that was very thoroughly built. She was also 1 or 2 land drops away from having an uncontrollably large Scoot swarm, and I think Felix's negate on Titania's command was the right move. I'm not entirely sure whether or not taking out Nissa with the rapid hybridization, or bouncing Greensleeve with the Quandared command though was. I think had Felix saved a few of the pieces of removal for Seb, he would have been more likely to win the game. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.